Hello everyone. Today we are going to read chapter 5, A Hard Word. Section 1. Po 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 cat cat po po cat. Oh dear, what a hard word. Let me see. Popo turtle. I can never pronounce it, I am sure. I wish they would not have such hard names in geography, said George Good, quite out of patience. Will you please tell me how to pronounce the name of this mountain, father? Why do you call that a hard word to pronounce, George? I know much harder words than that. Well, father, this is the hardest word I ever saw, replied George. I wish they had put the name into the volcano and burnt it up. I know how to pronounce it, said Jen. It is Popocatépetl. Popocatépetl, said George, stopping at each syllable. Well, it is not so very hard after all, but I wish they would not have any long words and then one could pronounce them easily enough. I do not think so, said his father. Some of the hardest words I have ever seen are the shortest. I know one little word with only two letters in it that very few children or men can always speak. Oh, I suppose it is a French or German word, isn't it, father? No, it is English, and you may think it strange, but it is just as hard to pronounce in one language as another. Only two letters, what can it be? Cried both the children. The hardest word, replied their father, I have ever met with any language, and I have learned several, is a little word of two letters. And oh no, now you are making fun of us, cried the children. That is one of the easiest words in the world. And to prove that their father was mistaken, they both repeated, and oh no, and oh no, a great many times. I'm not joking in the least. I really think it is the hardest of all words. It may seem easy enough to you tonight, but you may not be able to pronounce it tomorrow. I can always say it. I know I can, said George with much confidence. No. Why, it is as easy to say it is as to breathe. Well, George, I hope you will always find it as easy to pronounce as you think it is now, and that you will be able to speak it when you ought to. Section 2. In the morning, George went bravely to school, a little proud that he could pronounce so hard a word as Popocatépetl. Not far from the schoolhouse was a large pond of very deep water where the boys used to skate and slide when it was frozen over. Now, the night before, Jack Frost had been busy changing the surface of the pond into beautiful crystals of ice, and when the boys went to school in the morning, they found the pond as smooth and clear as glass. The day was cold, and they thought that by noon the ice would be strong enough to skate upon. As soon as school was dismissed, the boys ran to the pond, some to try the ice and others merely to see it. "Come, George," said William Green, "now we shall have a glorious time sliding." George hesitated and said he did not believe it was strong enough, for it had been frozen over only one night. "Oh, come on," said another boy. "I know it is strong enough. I have known it to freeze over in one night many a time. Haven't you, John?" "Yes," answered John Brown. "It did so one night last winter, and it wasn't so cold as it was last night either." But George still hesitated, for his father had forbidden him to go on the ice without special permission. "I know why George won't go," said John. "He is afraid he might fall down and hurt himself." "Or the ice might crack," said another, "and the noise would frighten him. Perhaps his mother might not like it." "He is a coward, that's the reason he won't come." George could stand this no longer, for he was rather proud of his courage. "I'm not afraid," said he, and he ran to the pond and was the first one on the ice. The boys enjoyed the sport very much, running and sliding and trying to catch one another on its smooth surface. More boys kept coming on as they saw the sport, and soon all thought of danger was forgotten. Then suddenly there was a loud cry, "The ice has broken! The ice has broken!" And sure enough, three of the boys had broken through and were struggling in the water, and one of them was George. Section 3. A teacher had heard the noise and was coming to call the boys from the ice just as they broke through. He tore some boards from a fence close by and shoved them out on the ice until they came within reach of the boys in the water. After a while, he succeeded in getting the three boys out of the water, but not until they were almost frozen. George's father and mother were very much troubled when he was brought home, and they learned how narrowly he had escaped drowning. But they were so glad to know that he was safe that they did not ask him any questions until he was warm and comfortable again. But in the evening, when they were all gathered together about the cheerful fire, his father asked him how he came to disobey his positive instructions. George answered that he did not want to go on the ice, but the boys made him. "How did they make you? Did they take hold of you and drag on you?" asked his father. "No," said George, "but they all wanted me to go." "When they asked you, why didn't you say no?" "I was going to do so, but they called me a coward and said I was afraid to go, and I couldn't stand that." "And so," said the father, You found it easier to disobey me and run the risk of losing your life than to say that little word you thought so easy last night. You could not say no. George now began to see why this little word no was so hard to pronounce. It was not because it was so long or composed of such difficult sounds, but because it often requires so much real courage to say it, to say no when one is tempted to do wrong. After that, whenever George was tempted to do wrong, he remembered his narrow escape from drowning and the importance of the little word no. The oftener he said it, the easier it became, and in time he could say it when necessary without much effort. So, this was the reading of our chapter, A Hard Word. If you have any doubt or query, you can ask me in the comment box below. Also, don't forget to check the description box for the links to other chapters. Thank you, everyone.